Hello, everyone. Welcome to Achieving Success with Olivia Akin. I'm your host, Olivia Akin. Each week, we will discuss the roadmap of achieving your personal and professional success. We give you real-life stories on growing personally and professionally to achieve your life and career goals with the help of some top-notch guests. Today, we are speaking with Jorge Toledo. Jorge Toledo is a dynamic individual with a diverse background spanning from professional speaking, oil and gas leadership, artistry, athleticism, and survival. Following nearly 4 decades in the oil and gas sector, where he demonstrated integrity and leadership, Jorge endured 1,775 days of illegal detention in Venezuela. Since his release, he has become an advocate for hostages and political hostage diplomacy. Currently, Jorge is documenting his experiences in a forthcoming book titled 1,775 Days of Captivity, Survival, and Growth. You can find Jorge on LinkedIn by searching Jorge Toledo or by going to his website, iconicClassicArtistry.com, or emailing him at info@iconicClassicArtistry.com. Hello, Jorge. It's fantastic having you on the show today.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you for having me here. I'm excited to chat with you.
I'm really excited. So let's dive in. I want to start off with asking you, what does success mean and look like to Jorge Toledo?
Wow, this is a very philosophical and pragmatic kind of question, but I'm going to look for the help of a couple of quotes from people that I admire. Thomas Edison talked about success, about the most certain way to succeed is always to try just one more time. Also, I would like to quote my mentor, Daisaku Ikeda, who was the third president of Soka Gakkai International. He said, "The real struggle in life is with ourselves. The true secret of success is the refusal to give up, the refusal to fail. It lies in the struggle to win the battle against one's own weaknesses." So I think that frame my perspective on success from the philosophical and pragmatic standpoint. I think success is the result of something. Is the effect of a cause, of an action. Success is the result of strategic and tactical planning, setting goals and objectives, execution. Success is fueled by discipline, perseverance, hard work, determination, courage, and the overcoming of our own weaknesses and limitations. I think is the result of our willingness to make a difference or contribution. It is also learning from defeat and mistakes. Success, as a conclusion from my standpoint, is extracting value from adversity and tragedy.
And I love how you gave us those quotes because they're such impactful quotes, as well as through your own experiences, because I like how you bring it from, it is a result of something, whether positive or negative, how you work through that, you get an end result that can look successful. And sometimes when we're going through those bad times, we don't know what the end result can be. We have to have that determination, that mindset that there can be a successful outcome, whether that is professionally through situations you've been in that have been at a very different level than most of us can even fathom. But illegal detention, being captured, there's probably such a mindset to that and that determination that there will be a better tomorrow. I can get through that. And we're definitely going to talk about that. But before we do, I want to touch upon your background prior to being captured in Venezuela. You spent nearly 4 decades in the oil and gas sector, something that no matter how long or where you live, oil and gas is a conversation that always comes up. So for you, what initially drove you into the oil and gas sector, and how has those experiences early on shaped how you were as a VP within the organization and how you led and those values over the years?
Well, I have to start from the beginning of my current existence.
Mhm.
I was born and raised in Caracas, Venezuela, and I had the privilege or the benefit of growing up during the decades that peaked the oil and gas boom in Venezuela. So it was a the result of previous decades. And during the 60s and the 70s, that were the decades I'm talking about, that oil business peaked to the extent that if you check macroeconomic information from the 60s and the 70s, you're going to see Venezuela within the top two or top three countries with the highest standard of living and GDP in Latin America. So that means that were a lot of opportunities for education, for culture. So that's the kind of environment where I came from. So the oil and gas business was, a fundamental element of the success of the Venezuelan society during the 60s and the 70s. But I had like two sectors in my brain or in my spirit. I had the logical mindset that brought me to the engineering and technical type of activities that led into for me to get my bachelor degree in engineering. But also I had the other side, which is the arts. So I was quite inclined to arts, music, theater, dance. So I started studying. I had formal musical education since I was 9 years old. So I was combined these two segments, until I finished college, and I had a dilemma on whether I'm going to be an engineer or following a career in the oil and gas business, because I was pretty clear that that was my path, or developing a career in performing arts. And from all of a sudden, Exxon appeared in my life, and that is where I started my career, and started traveling around the world as a result of my job in Exxon. And then in 1996, I joined Citgo Petroleum Corporation. Citgo is an U.S. incorporated entity, which is an indirect subsidiary of the National Oil Company of Venezuela, Petróleos de Venezuela. And I spent the last 26 years there. So almost 40 years, actually. I am in my almost 40 years, I developed my career in the downstream segment of the business, which means supply, trading, wholesale, retail, planning, strategy, information management, and government. So that combination of the pragmatism in business, an engineer with the background in arts, I think that was what really shaped my what is called my leadership style. So how I led organizations and my groups until I became the VP of Supply and Marketing of the corporation. And I would say that it's three key elements: result orientation. And I think that leads into two important elements: determination and action. And both for me are combined to achieve results, because determination without action is just wishful thinking. So that's why the third element of the result attached to your determination and your action is fundamental to achieve, whatever you want to achieve. And that is what I try to convey and transmit to my teams. Also, when I talk about teams, I think success is in business, in sports, even in music, is associated to fostering the individual's talents as well as nurturing their potential. So I think that one of the role of the leaders is to develop people. And in my experience, when in my life in the oil and gas business, I would say that 80% is people and the remaining 20% is related to the business per se. So developing your teams, developing your people, opening the avenues for people for growth and development, education, culture, and the incorporation of the right values. That is fundamental for a leader. The third one is motivation. It's important to motivate teams to reach a level of excellence on performance. So there's no option but excellence. So, and we're going to face challenges and changes, and we're going to face risks, but from challenges, in particularly from adversity, we can extract value, and there's opportunity from volatility. So in these three aspects that I have mentioned, I have a sort of similarity with a symphonic orchestra and the conductor. And most of the people see the conductor of us, and doesn't understand what is the conductor's role. But it's very important because the conductor, it has the visibility of the parts of each one of the musicians that are playing in the orchestra. But also, the tempo is also the other important part, because tempo is associated to the heartbeat of individuals. And if you have 50 musicians and, each one, depending on their heartbeat, the heart frequency, is going to have a sort of different perception on tempo. So the conductor, one of these function of the conductor is to unify all these 50 or 60 heartbeats into one. And I think that is a perfect metaphor to show, what a true leader brings to teams in order to bring them to excellence. That is my 2 cents on leadership and what I put into execution during my time leading organizations.
And I love that. And I think it's so important to take it from that perception of the conductor, which typically when we think of leadership or management roles in general, we understand we are leading a group of people, but it is and can be so diverse in what individuals' roles look like, their experiences, the out of the box things that an individual might bring to the table. And you really have to go, how can we put this all together so we can make that beautiful sound, make that beautiful song come out where no one person is necessarily above the person next to them, but it flows where you wouldn't know who is doing what every single day from the outside. You just know it's a well-oiled machine, that it works, that you're going to go and get the product you might want without a headache, without stress, and you don't know all the moving pieces. And I think when a great team, a truly great team works together, you get that outcome where you don't know who has their hand, who's doing what, you just know the outcome is so amazing. But it also brings me back to something you said earlier, that artistry side of yourself. Because a lot of people who might be more technically trained will look at it and go, okay, what are all the steps? Where do I need to go? And look at leading as more of a technical aspect. But I think a unique part that you bring into it is that artistry, to go, okay, where's the beauty? Where in the mess, kind of like you said earlier, even in those obstacles, there can be those beautiful moments and lessons learned. Where's that beauty? It can be beautiful, but we got to work through it. And that's something, you being an artist, you, even when you're painting, you've got to get messy in order to create the image. You have to, use a bunch of different colors. Sometimes take that step back and go, okay, what color do I want to use next? Or how can I mold this into a new color based on the colors that are on the palette, which I think can really go into leading individuals. How can you take everyone's colors and create that beautiful synergy that you can step back and go, look at the beauty that we've all created? And for you, what was the most challenging part, whether it was throughout your, over 3 decades in the oil and gas business, or sometimes even personal conversations where your brain is tying together more of that artistic side and that more technical side of things? And how do you have some of those conversations when you're in your head having different perspectives than maybe others might have?
Well, the initial thought on these two apparent different aspects of the life of a human is that they are separate. But we as individuals are part of the universe. So we are not isolated entities. So we are connected, and we have human connections with others, human connections with activities, and what I think that rules the universe, that is cause and effect. Every single second, every single moment, you have something happen that generates an effect. My experience was that at the very beginning, I was just choosing between two different areas in my life. And after the years, I discovered that one area complements the other, because the art in general is, for me, my definition of art is a spiritual state. So it's something that is created by the very inner side of an individual and is materialized in sounds, in images, or even in other type of performances, such as acting, dance, or and so. But it's a process that starts internally in the individual. When you're running a business, like the one that I run, I was in a very dynamic and volatile sector of the business, which is the supply and trading of hydrocarbon commodities. You have a lot of volatility in the market, and you have to have not only the knowledge and understanding of the market, is the sensibility of detect or visualize where is the next steps on the market volatility. What your spirit tells you that your business and the market is going. So art, takes sensibility out of your organism, and that sensibility is like what is going to help you to have that vision on the changes on the market. Not only changes on what is going on now, understanding what happened before this moment, and obviously, the forecast. Where are we going in the short, mid, and long term? So bottom line, my experience in my life as an artist and as a business executive came together as a unity, as something that was one universe rather than being separated. And what I try to convey to my teams is that uh, not to disregard any part of your life, because everything is complemented. Anything can help. And as a for the decision-making process, for the communication process, so everything is connected. That is, my experience.
And I think that's a very good point to highlight, is that everything is really connected and everything can shape who we are and how we navigate throughout different situations. And that being said, George, during your tenure as vice president of supply and marketing at Citgo, you were among the 6 individuals captured in Venezuela. Could you provide some insights into the events leading up to your capture?
Yeah, I would like to start saying that I was involved or in the midst of a geopolitical affair between initially 2 countries, but there were some others as satellites. As I mentioned, Citgo Petroleum Corporation is a Delaware incorporated indirect subsidiary of the National Oil Company of Venezuela. It's an American company, an American legal entity, which is legally doing business in the United States. Citgo started over 100 years ago, so it's not a new company, but it was acquired by Venezuela in the mid 80s. Then it was a 50% acquisition in 1985, 86. And in 1990, Venezuela acquired the remaining 50%, becoming the solely owner of the corporation. So, but the political environment in Venezuela started changing dramatically in 1998, when Hugo Chavez took office as the president of Venezuela and brought what it called is called the socialism of the 21st century. When this started, the bilateral relationships between the U.S. and Venezuela deteriorated, and there was a gradual deterioration. Initially, within this first time frame, Venezuela developed strong ties with hostile countries to the U.S., such as Iran, Russia, China, Cuba, Nicaragua, Syria, and Iraq. So as a result of that deterioration, President Obama issued an executive order to implement the first set of sanctions to Venezuela. That involves actions on policies or undermining democratic processes or institutions, serious human rights abuses, etc. So at that point, Venezuela started being notorious because of corruption and violation of human rights, etc. So as a result of these sanctions, the ability to do business by PDVSA started being reduced, to the extent that PDVSA lost in credit in the U.S. And obviously, Citgo was impacted by this situation because it was Citgo's shareholder that was having this type of issues. So it was pretty difficult to do business from the Citgo standpoint with such a negative business environment and impact. Nevertheless, Citgo in 2015 and 2016 had its best 2 years ever until that date. On November 2016, PDVSA signed an agreement with a Russian entity, Rosneft, for a prepayment of crude, and as a collateral, offered to Rosneft 49.9% of the ownership of the entity who owns Citgo, which is another U.S. entity. So this created a political scandal in the U.S. So it was tremendous because there was a risk of having the seventh refiner in the U.S. owned partially by a Russian entity. So that created a political issue and triggered, more confrontation between the U.S. administration and the Venezuelan regime. So during the President Trump administration on August 2017, President Trump released the first set of economic sanctions to Venezuela. So at that point, the Citgo business was disengaged from the relationship from the shareholder because this sanction environment put in jeopardy Citgo's operation if Citgo started having these ties with the parent company. So I want to give this overview on the business environment because for us, running the company was so difficult to keep the company in shape, doing normal business and making money because of all this situation. So my job at that time was to protect Citgo's hydrocarbon transactions from any risk of conflict with the imposed sanctions. So there were no dividends paid to the shareholder, and so the sentiment of the Venezuelan government against the U.S. was very sensitive. So by November 2017, a couple of months after the first set of sanctions, in November, the week of Thanksgiving, I received a last-minute call to attend a business meeting in Caracas, along other 5 executives of the company. The reason of the meeting was not disclosed. Just we had to be there because we had to make some presentations in Caracas. So we traveled the following day of receiving that notification on the meeting, and we started having that meeting when I realized that the topic of the meeting was related to finance and some legal areas of the business. So I said, well, I have nothing to do with the scope of this meeting because my role is just business and operational. So I'm moving crude barrels into Citgo refineries, and then I'm taking the refined product barrels to the market. So that's my role. I don't have any financial nor legal responsibility in the company. So within the second day of the meeting, from all of a sudden, a squad of 18 or 20 guards from the Military Intelligence Agency of Venezuela appeared, covered with helmets, long weapons in the meeting room, and they detained us, alleging, formally alleging that we entered into corruption activities in Citgo. But we were also accused of being CIA agents We were also accused that we took advantage of a role in the company to help the U.S. government to impose sanctions to Venezuela, and also that we were working to dismantle or making non-effective the agreement that PDVSA signed with the Russian entity, which brings them into a position of conflict with an ally. And an ally means Russia. So that is the set of background all the way to the moment of my detention, my illegal and arbitrary detention in Caracas.
And you endured 1,775 days of illegal detention. And that isn't like, oh, we made a mistake. That's, we're making a point and we're about to keep you here as long as we can kind of situation. And it can be a harrowing experience. Can you take us through some of those challenging moments and the most significant moments you had during that time and how you stayed resilient through those days until you were released?
Well, in almost 5 years, there's a lot of things that happen. Every single day is an adventure. It's a different story. But it was the result of an evolution, because depending on the time, the challenge was different. At the very beginning, I would say was chaos and confusion. I don't know what I'm doing here. I don't know what this is happening. This should be a mistake, a confusion. And then you have that moment of confusion and, but then you start, getting into the life of a prisoner, somebody in captivity. And for the very first time, I faced very complicated situations, like being in front of a squad of people that I don't know, and with long weapons. The first time in my life that I was handcuffed. The first time in my life that I was tortured physically and psychologically. And that added more confusion into the situation. Then life in prison, being literally in a dungeon, in a very small place, overcrowded. I was taken into a cell, separated from my colleagues. I was meeting new people that were my cellmates, and that was, very overwhelming, very concerning. That my life was in jeopardy. I don't know who these guys are, and so on. But I think the first big challenge here is, when you have your reality check. When I understood that I was in the midst of a geopolitical issue, therefore, there's no easy way to be out of the circumstance. This is going to take time, because that was literally an abduction perpetrated by a state. And that means that the diplomatic tools and instruments from my country has to be activated in order to look for my release. And this is quite complicated. That was a very challenging moment when I said, I need to be patient. I need to be calm. I need to have control. And then the second challenge, when I started, having like an inventory of items in my life in order to check if I have control or not on these items. And I realized that I had control of nothing but my physical, mental, and spiritual health. In that very moment, I said, well, my approach has to be focused on preserving my mental, physical, and spiritual health. And then I started my survival process. So attacking each one of these three areas, although, the environment and the conditions of captivity were, very harsh and brought my life into jeopardy. So I was spent a long period of time in isolation and in very tiny places or cells, like 2 meter by 1 cell, without running water, without deprived to go to the bathroom, deprived to see my family, deprived to see even my attorneys. As a result, I suffered multiple ailments in prison, and I was also submitted into a severe malnutrition. I am a 5'10" person, and my weight after the 11th month of captivity reached 100 pounds. So I was like, a prisoner in a Nazi camp. I lost almost all my muscular mass. I was just, skin and bones. That's it. So, and eventually, if this situation is prolonged, death is a scenario. So I try to be economic on burning calories. My background as a marathon runner helped me to figure out the calories that I was intaking in a daily basis, and my conclusion was that I was not the calorie intake didn't reach even 500 calories per day. So this is an energy balance. That explains my malnutrition in my weight loss. Then eventually nutrition improved, and I was doing stretching, yoga, and some static workout to keep myself active and in shape. That was a part of my physical health. The mental health was very important, because your mind could be your worst enemy. And your worst enemy, because it causes three things that kills any prisoner, which is depression, anxiety, and despair. And I was with cellmates that some of them committed suicide because they were not able to manage these three consequences created by your own mind. So what I did was that I started doing meditation, but not meditation, commercial meditation for relaxation. The meditation that I learned when I studied Brahmanism and Buddhism and Hinduism, that is a meditation intended to get you in a high concentration state. That allowed me to be like apart from the conditions of my environment. And I spent hours and hours and hours doing meditation. Also, I try to teach, my meditation practices to other cellmates that wanted to learn, because they wanted to sleep, and I wanted to sleep as well. By the way, I was under a very intense light, 24 hours, 7 days a week, by almost 3 years. So my sleeping time was totally absent. And that also was a challenge for my health. But the last time of my captivity, I was authorized to teach music and teach English to other cellmates. And in some way, my feeling of doing something that was helping a little to other cellmates to cope with the circumstances was something that helped me to survive. And then the spiritual side. Spiritual side is how you conceptualize your circumstance. And that's a starting point. So what is the situation that is happening to me? And you can approach it in different ways. The first one is the easy part is somebody is doing something bad or something wrong to me. So somebody else is somebody else's fault. Other option is that if I did something wrong and I am punished because of something that I did. So it's that triggers your feeling of being guilty of something. Then on an upper level, you could think that this is your karma. And now we're going to the concept of karma, which is the consequence of your actions. That's the definition from this Sanskrit word. But I reviewed my entire life, and I didn't find any event or any action that triggered such an abhorrent situation that I was living. And when you are able to understand life from the perspective of past, present, and future, you start seeing your circumstance as like steps on a long ladder, meaning that I have to live this situation in order to move my life to the next level, in order to improve something. It's like a prerequisite of something that I'm going to get in the future. And that is when, when you have that perspective or that vision of your circumstance, is when you say, I want to survive. So, because this is something good for me whenever this is finished, because everything in life is in a temporary basis. Impermanence is what rules the universe. So my ordeal has an expiration date. Therefore, I don't know when, how, under what circumstances, but I have the conviction that this is going to finish and I'm going to be back home, back to my family. And that is, that conviction trigger your faith, and your faith triggers your hope and your determination, your actions to get a result. And at what I would say the most important part on the spiritual area of my survival is when you go through all this process, there's the why. So why I am going to survive. And that why means, I'm going to go back to my family. I'm going to go back to the people I love, the people who has spiritual connections with me. And and my commitment is that I'm going to be back stronger than before, as a better man than before. And that brings purpose and meaning to your existence, to your life. And that is the why. And the why is important because it's the answer of the question of why I have to survive. And why I have to, reach that last stage of the journey. And that is in some way my process of survival.
And it's a great process because it really makes you check sometimes when you're potentially spiraling and going, what is happening? Why is this happening? Did I do something? It provides you that ability to give yourself the check and balances. Okay, am I eating enough? Am I mentally stable? If not, what can I do? Am I exercising? And really check all of these things as you're going. And one of the big whys you had too was, and even if you didn't know it or not, is now you've become an activist talking about human rights and the importance of human rights on a lot of different levels. So that is making such an impact due to your experiences. George, how can people get in touch with you if they want to connect with you?
Well, I think the easiest way is to go to my website. It's www.iconoclasticartistry.com. And in that website, I put together the entire story from past, present, and future. And my current activities on activism on human rights and trying to find a permanent solution to the issue that I was victim of, hostage diplomacy.
Mm-hmm. And thank you, George, for all of your insight today. And a few of those key takeaways from today's conversation are: there's an opportunity in vulnerability and in if I could talk, versatile developments. So when things are, shaky and rocky, there is opportunity in that. Sometimes we have to step back and go, okay, what is the opportunity from this environment that is the unknown? But there can be opportunity. As well as a leader in business, you are like a conductor of an orchestra, making that symphony come to life, making the colors on a piece of artwork come and combine together. So what beautiful piece can you make while bringing together a lot of different people with a lot of different backgrounds and really making it that beautiful piece? As well as sometimes we have to take a check of what we have actual control of. Like George mentioned, it's sitting back sometimes and going, what do I really have control of today, this week? And let me work on those things. And the things I don't have control on, realize that, go, okay, I don't have control of this, and keep going on the things that you do actually have control at. As well as your mind can be your worst enemy. And I couldn't agree more. And this is why I did my whole TED Talk on defeating your biggest enemy, you, because we can all get in our own ways, but we all have the power to turn that enemy ourselves and become that victor and go, okay, no, I might be my worst enemy right now, but because I am my worst enemy, I also have the power to become my best solution. As well as everything in life is temporary. When we're down on ourselves, when we're feeling that depression, everything is going to keep moving. The only constant in life is change. This was a great episode with our top-notch guest, Jorge Toledo. Thank you for listening and have a successful day.